Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for joining me today. Could I kindly ask you to subscribe and to like before we get into the video? So today I'm going to be sharing with you guys 10 things you probably did not know about counselling. And I hope all of them sufficiently shock and surprise you. Number one, I've mentioned this before in one of my videos, counsellors are not allowed to give you advice. They're not allowed to tell you what to do with your life. They're not allowed to tell you what you should do in your own time and how to fix your problems. They can suggest things which you have an option to follow or not to follow. They can give you homework, but they cannot advise you. So if you say to them, should I break up with my boyfriend? They can't say yes or no directly. They can't. If you ask them, you know, is this the right way to raise my kids? They can't say yes, it's the right way. Or should I discipline my kid like this, or should I discipline my kid like that? They cannot give you advice. They cannot even give you direct answers to things most of the time. They can't really just say yes or no to some things. It's always best to focus on you. So don't be surprised if when you ask your counsellor for advice, they either swerve you or they say that they will not give you advice. And if they give you advice a bit too often, then they maybe should consider being a life coach instead of a counsellor. That's just my take. Number two, counsellors do not give medication to patients. They do not prescribe medication. We are not doctors. I know some of you see it on TV and you think that we're all the same and we all give medication, but people who give medication are actually psychiatrists. Psychiatrists are trained a bit longer and a bit extra so they can prescribe medication. So you come to a counsellor, you have a mental health illness, they're not going to prescribe you antidepressants or anything like that because we're not trained to prescribe medication to people. Those are psychiatrists. And number three, counsellors actually do not take notes in sessions. Despite what the movies have shown you, before I started my training, I used to think that we take notes too. And I remember in one of my seminars, we actually spoke about note taking and whether we should, whether we shouldn't. And the consensus is no, we do not take notes, and it's better not to take notes. Every now and then they might take notes, maybe in the first session. Let's say if you've got a lot to talk about, a lot to explain, a lot of history behind your situation, they might take notes of important names, important dates, things that stand out to them, just to help them remember the first encounter that you guys have. You might share a lot of information, but as the weeks go on, they'll remember a lot of things without having to take notes. So in sessions, we don't take notes for a lot of reasons, some of them being that it helps us to focus on you and it doesn't take our attention away from you. Second of all, it helps you to feel less anxious, like, what are you writing about me? Because if I'm sitting there writing notes about you, you're going to feel some type of way, especially when I don't write for a long time and then you say one specific thing and then I write a note about that thing. You're going to wonder why, and it's going to take away from the session being productive and having your full attention. So yeah, there are many reasons, but those are the main reasons. Number four, counsellors also have their own counsellors known as supervisors. So counsellors are supposed to have their own counsellors or therapists which are known as supervisors. These are people they go to at least once a month minimum, depending on how many clients they're seeing. The more clients you see, the more times that you have to see your supervisor. So this is to help them take care of their mental health. It's to help relieve them of like the stresses. Going to a supervisor is important for counsellors so that they can share everything that they've gone through in their sessions. They can release any emotional burdens. They can talk about any sessions that are difficult for them to handle, any sessions that have been troubling them, any sessions that they feel like they want to end or refer for whatever reason. They can talk to their supervisor about it so that they're not struggling and going home with like all the emotional baggage from their day. So it's really, really important that if you are a counsellor, you have a supervisor. It is unethical for a counsellor to be practicing full-time, part-time, seeing people on a regular basis and not having a supervisor. It is not allowed. They should have a supervisor. Number five, there are different counselling approaches. There are different types of counselling. They are not all the same. Every counsellor uses a different method and a different way of speaking and working with clients. So I've started a series on the different types of counselling approaches, and I released one a few weeks ago called the humanistic approach, which is one of many. There's psychodynamic, there's person-centered, there's so many types. I'm going to keep making more videos on those in the future, but if you want to watch the previous one that I just mentioned, I'm going to link it above. So when you go to a therapist, it's not just talking, it's not just you talk, they listen and sometimes they speak back, but a lot of them will have a specific mode of training and talking that they will use. and a specific approach which helps them, gives them guidance on the things to focus about in your sessions. So psychodynamic, for example, a really popular one. A lot of you know Freud. He was a psychodynamic therapist. That approach fundamentally focuses on the past and childhood issues and so on and so forth. So with that one, you'll find that your therapist wants to talk about the subconscious, wants to talk about the past. Whereas humanistic, for example, they'll talk about the present. They won't really delve into the past. They'll talk about here and now. They won't try to interpret things and analyze things like that. So every approach is different. So every therapist has a different mode of practice that they use. Hi, I would just like to kindly ask you, sorry, I'd just like to interrupt this broadcast just to ask you to quickly subscribe and to like. Let's get back into the video. So I'm sure you've heard of confidentiality in counselling. Counsellors can't share anything that you talk about in your session with anybody. Unfortunately, there are 4 other circumstances under which they must share things that happen in your session. The first one being if there's any sign of abuse or any sign of the fact that you might harm yourself or someone else. If you're suicidal, they will probably have to refer you to somebody, or they will have to notify somebody. So that's the first circumstance. The second one is terrorism. If they suspect terrorism that you know about or you're involved in, they will have to alert the authorities. Number 3 is money laundering, and number 4 is drug trafficking. So if those things do come up in your session, the counsellor has no choice but to alert the authorities, because if they don't, then they are at risk of losing their license or being suspended or whatever, because they did not share that. So those are the only circumstances under which a therapist will. But if they do notify somebody, there's a chance that they will let you know that they have to refer you. They won't just do it behind your back. They will probably notify you to let you know that, yeah, I've had to tell someone and I have to notify somebody about what you've just told me. Number 7 is that the counselling hour is actually 50 minutes. It's not an actual hour. In counselling, we call it the 50-minute hour, which is very ironic, because why is it 50-minute hour? It should just be 50 minutes. But anyway, the 50-minute session, I feel like it should just be called the 50-minute session, because the 50-minute hour contradicts the whole point of it being an hour. Anyways, it is what it is. It's called the 50-minute hour. So your session is 50 minutes, and it allows 10 minutes for the counsellor to prepare for the next session if they've got one, and to just write up notes on the session that you've just had. So they'll write notes after the session, but they won't do it during the session. Number 8 is that counsellors are not allowed to work with friends and family, or maybe people that they know, or their colleagues. Yeah, for many reasons. I'd like to say it's obvious why we can't, but the same way that we are not allowed to have relationships with our clients because it blurs the boundaries, the same way that because of the boundaries that we have with our friends and family, we can't then bring those boundaries into the counselling room and expect the same outcome as if we were working with a stranger. It just wouldn't work. If my friend comes to me for counselling, I already know everything about you, you know a lot about me. It's just not going to be the same. It's not going to work. And we avoid working with people that are mutuals. So if I know someone you know, we both know the same person, I would rather not work with you, just because of boundaries and secrets that might come out. You know, you might mention something about them, you might know something about me because of them, and it's just going to mess things up. And obviously counsellors are not allowed to develop relationships with their clients either. So it's just about boundaries. That's why it's not allowed. So to all my dear friends who have asked me if I can be their counsellor one day, the answer is no. It's not allowed, it's not ethical, and I'm not going to do it. I can refer you to somebody that I trust is a good counsellor, but yeah, that counsellor ain't gonna be me. Number 9 is that counsellors cannot fix all your problems, believe it or not. They're not magicians, they're not God. Sorry about that helicopter there. I think I'll just wait for it to pass. Counsellors don't know everything. They don't have the answer to it all. We're not perfect human beings. We're figuring life out as much as you're figuring life out. So when you come to us, like, we're not gonna have the answers to everything. Like, don't come with the mindset that I'm gonna give my counsellor my problem, my relationship issues, my personal issues, my flaws and my weaknesses, and they're gonna fix it all for me, because that's not how it works. So you're gonna have to come prepared to do the work for your problems to be fixed, because this is a collaboration. You work with me, I work with you, and if we both make the effort, then the chances are that your problems will have a solution by the end of it. But you have to be willing to put in the work. It's not for you to come and sit and tell the counsellor everything and then just expect them to fix it all. It does not work like that, just as life doesn't work like that. So yeah. That brings us to number 10, which is that counsellors have different levels of qualification, believe it or not. obviously the longer you work the more experience you have, but even then you still have different levels of qualification, which I kind of explained in one of my videos about how to become a counsellor, the part 2 video. So obviously you've got counsellors who are merely registered, so they've got less placement hours, less client experience. And then you can have like senior accredited, you can have accredited, so there's different levels, and their level of qualification will be stated. If it's not stated, you can always ask them and ask to check their qualifications so that you're sure you're in the hands of somebody that you trust. So good luck, and thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you enjoy the bloopers, and I will see you guys next week at 12 p.m. Bye. You can check whenever you look for a counsellor. What's with all these helicopters today? Okay, so can't just expect like to put pizza in the oven, it come out cooked, and bring your problems and have it back to you solved. That's not how it works. No. I would just like to wait. So yeah. Well guys, called humanistic approach. Taking on of emotion, like, it's to help them, obviously, it's to help them. So don't be, I know some people expect people